Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Matt and I'm here with Andrew. Today we're going to be talking about true romance and, well, I'll let Alabama set it up for you. So grab your popcorn and Reese's Pieces and let's break it down on the Post Credit Podcast.
All the way from the highways and byways of Tallahassee, Florida, to Motor City, Detroit to find my true love. If you gave me 1,000,000 years to ponder, I would never have guessed that true romance and Detroit would ever go together. And to this day, the events that followed all seem like a distant dream. But the dream was real and was to change our lives forever. I kept asking Clarence why our world seemed to be collapsing and everything seemed so shitty. And he'd say, "That's the way it goes, but don't forget, it goes the other way too." That's the way romance is. Usually that's the way it goes, but every once in a while, it goes the other way too.
Like I said, I can't remember when the Nicolas Cage has played a villain except for Face Off.
Did you know this is like the second or third time we've talked about Face Off on the podcast?
Oh, really?
Without actually talking about Face Off.
We probably should do that.
We should probably do that.
Yeah.
But not today.
No.
Because today we are talking about true romance. I'm going to get the intro out now instead of half an hour into the episode.
Do it.
So True Romance was a movie, came out in 1993. It was written, obviously, by Quentin Tarantino. Maybe not obviously to some people, because he usually writes and directs his own movie. But this is back in the day. He was just starting out. This is the first script he ever wrote, was True Romance. It was directed by Tony Scott. Tony Scott is the brother of Ridley Scott. But he's not just the brother of Ridley Scott. He is a filmmaker in his own right that's had a lot of high-profile popular movies. You know, back in the 80s, it was Top Gun. That was probably like his most famous one when he first started. Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that would be the most famous one.
Yeah. So I mean, he's done stuff like what are you doing? Oh, okay. So he's done stuff like he's done Top Gun. He did Beverly Hills Cop 2, and that Beverly Hills Cop 2 is the least recognizable to me. I remember the events of the first one.
Okay.
I remember the events of the third one. A lot of that was at Happy Land, or it had that theme park. What was that theme park in Beverly Hills Cop 3? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
Part 2 was always it's always been more of a least or less watched one for me. But he also did Days of Thunder, this one, Last Boy Scout, Crimson Tide, Enemy of the State, Man on Fire, Domino, Deja Vu, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, and Unstoppable. Now, Unstoppable is like one of my great movies. I wouldn't say it's like top 10 movies as far as my favorite movies of all time, but it's one of these movies, Unstoppable, that I watch like every 6 months or something.
And it's coming out pretty recently. It's not that old of a movie. Really.
2010.
Yeah, so I mean, okay, 10-year movie, but
yeah, but I mean that was the last movie he directed.
Yeah.
So, and obviously Tony Scott passed away some time ago. Some unfortunate circumstances. He was had a lot of problems, a lot of troubles in his life that we don't really need to get into. I'm sure you could look it up if you'd like to, but it's a shame because he was very, very talented. But sometimes the fight of life can be a little too tough for some people, I think.
I suppose.
But anyways, True Romance, like I said, it came out in 1993. It was directed by Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino written this movie, and he also written Reservoir Dogs. And he wanted to make one, but he couldn't make both of them.
Wait, did you say he directed this movie?
No. Quentin Tarantino.
You said that before.
Oh, I don't know if I did, but Quentin Tarantino wrote both of these movies, True Romance and Reservoir Dogs.
That, yeah.
Right. And then he couldn't do both of them. Yeah. He could only do one, and Tony Scott wanted to do one, and so basically Quentin Tarantino told him to pick one.
Yeah.
And he really wanted to do Reservoir Dogs, but he wanted to do True Romance just a bit more.
Yeah.
So he picked True Romance, and Quentin.
Did he do Natural Born Killers too?
No, that was Oliver Stone, I believe.
But it's the same world / universe.
Not really. It was originally started out to be. So the characters in this movie are played by Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette. And they play Alabama and Clarence. They were when they're on the road trip in the movie.
Yeah.
Clarence was like writing a story called Natural Born Killers, and that's where that whole thing came from. And it was going to be told as one big movie. But when Tony Scott took over and all this kind of stuff,
it was the opposite of what you just said.
Quentin Tarantino decided to just split them up into two. No, he was having Clarence write Natural Born Killers, and then he split them up into two.
In
movies.
The Natural Born Killers, when they kidnapped that writer, right? And that writer was the one that writing the story about True Romance.
I'll confess to you, I have never watched Natural Born Killers.
Oh man, it's been a long time for me, but I do remember.
I know bits and pieces of it and everything. I've just never seen the whole thing. But I do know in my research on this that as you know, when they're going from Detroit to L.A. on that road trip or whatever, they were going to have some scenes of him writing about Natural Born, and they were going to have some of the events in Natural Born Killers in this movie. Yeah. But he just decided to split it up and say that story is its own thing. Let's have them be that, and then let's have Clarence and Alabama be this. Because then I think they were going to cast, or Quentin Tarantino wanted to cast Juliette Lewis, who we talked about last week in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. He wanted to cast her as Alabama in this movie if he had done this movie. Yeah. But he didn't, obviously, and so he used I don't know if he maybe recommended her to Oliver Stone for Natural Born Killers or what it may be, but
no, she, like I said last episode, that she's very good at playing that crazy psycho
who is very good, Juliette Lewis.
And so in Gilbert Grape, she really didn't play that role, but in Natural Born Killers,
we had talked about she was being more reactionary to everything that was happening to her. How would you describe if somebody were to ask you, because I read some stories online about, my mom bought this movie because of the title alone. Yeah. And so I wonder how many people see the title True Romance. I mean, especially if they're in the DVD, or Blockbuster back in the day, and they see these two characters smiling on the front of the thing and see it's called True Romance, thinking it's a romance movie. Yeah. And then they get what they get. Or people who scrolling through Netflix nowadays or Amazon or whatever find this movie, find that it's called True Romance, and not, they don't read the description and start watching it. Well, how would you describe this movie?
Well, here's the thing. To be perfectly honest with you, I probably didn't watch this film until about 2005, 2006, and I was in the military, and a buddy of mine on the ship, he actually, suggested watching this movie. And when I heard, True Romance, I was like, oh, okay, maybe it's just a rom-com or something, I didn't expect it to be what it was. And then, I put the movie in, I'm like, okay, this is a lot older. And then bam, you walk in on
the violence of a Quentin Tarantino script.
Exactly. But I mean, I watched that movie through and I was like, wow, that was a really good movie, but to hear it off, True Romance, I'm like, oh, man. But then it was like, okay, Quentin Tarantino was attached to the film too. So, okay.
Do you think it's a good title?
No.
No, you don't think it's a good title?
I don't. If I would have knew you were going to ask that question, I probably could have thought of something. But I think it's just
like an alternate title.
Yeah, I think. This
so just say this doesn't have a title, and you've never heard of the phrase True Romance. What would you call this movie?
Beginning of Tarantino's insanity. The beginning
insanity.
Of it.
Not so
I'm
much
not knocking.
insanity.
I love Tarantino movies.
More eclectic, more.
It was extremely vulgar, and I, to be honest, perfectly honest with you, it did bother me, you know, like a lot of the women getting hit and, you know,
Right.
By full-grown men, you know, that kind of hit me at the core of myself, you know, for a lot of it. But again, you know, you look at Tarantino movies, Kill Bill, for instance, is a perfect example, but, you know, he doesn't pull any punches, literally, you know?
Yeah, you know, you were talking about when you had first seen this. I saw this I saw it back in the 90s. It might have been right around when it first came out. But I didn't pay any real attention to it. It was a drug movie and all this kind of stuff. Mainly that's what it's about. So, you know, I didn't watch it because I just wasn't into that when I was younger. You know, I wanted to see like action movies and stuff, but not like this.
Yeah.
And, you know, we probably, you know, this is not something that we could watch on a regular basis, you know,
Or
with our parents.
Yeah, or, with your parents or
Right.
with children, you know, under the age of 17, really.
Talking nowadays, I definitely wasn't able to have my kid in the room. But it's one of these things where you had to go to your, you know, friend's house who their parents didn't really care what you watch, or at least didn't monitor or whatever. But I think it's a good title, and the reason I think that is because I see True Romance as a fairy tale. Okay, so if you ask Quentin Tarantino, and I don't think this is how it happened, but if you ask Quentin Tarantino, write a fairy tale, I think True Romance is what you would get, because you have Clarence, who's a nobody, right?
Right.
You're thinking of classic fairy tales back in the day, a nobody farm boy that becomes a knight, whatever, you know, the Luke Skywalker tale, or, you know, the medieval knight tale, or Princess Bride, or whatever, you know, these stories where it's a nobody. But, he, you know, he doesn't have any friends or anything, but he's extremely handsome. He's charming. He's charismatic and all that. But for some reason, he doesn't have any friends. He's like a little loner nerd that likes to watch his movie. And when I say nerd, I mean like movie nerd. And everything. Like, he likes his movies, his kung fu movies, and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So he falls in love with a like-minded soul who's in trouble. So he valiantly takes, you know, them both on an adventure to free her from her captors and to secure for them, you know, the means to start a life together. Right. So, I mean, it's like a fairy tale. And a lot of, like, their dialogue in the movie is just outrageous or weird, you know, like... She goes, you know, from this moment forward, I promise to never lie again. Or, you know, that the way she, I can't remember what the exact line was.
Drexel, what's the Drexel?
Please shut up. I'm trying to come clean, okay? I've been a call girl for exactly 4 days, and you're my third customer. I want you to know that I'm not damaged goods. I'm not what they call in Florida white trash. I'm a really good person. And when it comes to relationships, I'm 100% monogamous.
You stay with one guy?
Exactly. If I'm with you, then I'm with you, and I don't want anybody else. Now, I gotta tell you something else. When you said last night was one of the best times you ever had, did you mean physically?
Oh, yeah, but I'm talking about the whole night. I mean, I never had as much fun with a girl as I had with you my whole life. It's true. You like Elvis, you like Janice, you like kung fu movies, you like the Partridge Family.
Actually, I don't like the Partridge Family. That was part of the act. Clarence. And I feel really goofy saying this after only knowing you one night. Me being a call girl and all. But I think I love you.
Wait a second. Look, I've been trying to keep this whole thing in perspective. I mean, you just said you love me. Now, if I say I love you and just throw caution to the wind and let the chips fall where they may, and you're lying to me, I'm gonna fucking die.
I'm not lying to you. And I swear from this moment forth, I'll never lie to you again.
Did you notice something with those two characters, though? It almost seemed like it was...
Clarence in Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, it was almost seemed like they were one character. You know what I mean? Just one character. You know the old saying, you know, two sides of the coin.
Two sides
of the same coin, you know? And so... I felt like they were two sides of the same coin, and I feel like in a way that Tarantino this was supposed to be him. being the movie buff and things like that.
He's actually said that True Romance is the most autobiographical film that he has ever written because Clarence is a lot like him. Now, obviously, Christian Slater is a very good-looking, handsome leading man type of person.
Comparable,
Tarantino, not quite.
But I feel like them two together are the same character. In they have their differences, but I mean they almost make up like a yin yang situation. Where I kind of feel like this was Quentin Tarantino, both these characters together in a sense.
Yeah, maybe because of the way I've always seen these is it's the way these two act in the movie is like children. They act like 12-year-olds. Both of them do. And so it's like they're children trapped in adult bodies because the way they react, they're very naive with the things.
Have no real worries in the world.
No, not really. Or, just have they see the world through the eyes of movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get more into that. But I mean, I've always just seen them as like these kids that are pretending that, somehow got adult bodies and now they're doing adult stuff. But like, they don't take real, like you said, they don't take real situations seriously. No. They're in a very serious situation when they're doing the drug exchange. They don't realize for the money.
Yeah.
And she's sitting there writing on a napkin, "You're so cool."
Yeah.
And, different things like that, which is such an awesome, important part of this movie, the "you're so cool" thing.
But did you feel like especially near the beginning, it kind of felt like he was just trying to throw, pop culture in there, just randomly, like
with the Elvis speech.
With the Elvis speech, and it wasn't really like you didn't feel like he really was in love with it. I mean, granted, named their kid Elvis. Spoiler alert.
Well, and he saw Elvis throughout the entire movie, his imagination and everything.
As Val Kilmer and all that stuff, but it was really weird to me that it was just kind of like threw the Elvis thing in there, but you didn't feel like that was really part of the story, or that you feel like it was supposed to be part of the story, but in a way it really wasn't. It wasn't impactful. The whole Elvis thing. I felt like it wasn't impactful with that. And then around that time, martial arts movies had a uptick. I felt like during this time of the movie. Mm-hmm. There's a real uptick in the 90s and things like that.
That's when the U.S. was starting to take notice of like anime and stuff like that.
Yeah,
too.
And so there's a real uptick with martial arts. So they threw the martial arts feel into it, and then like you said, the lens through a movie. You know what I mean? And it just kind of felt like some of it was forced in a sense. Like he was trying to make you see a certain way, but it was kind of hard not to see it a different way. I'm trying to.
Do you think they're close to the Natural Born Killer characters then?
Yes, I
because
do.
I was thinking about this.
With morals,
maybe, but maybe they don't have morals because I mean, like I said, you got two leads trapped in adult bodies or whatever. Clarence's dad realizes this and treats him like a kid. Yeah. Like you are exactly like your mother. You come in here he's still treating him like a kid and everything, right? And talking to him like that. And maybe they're like that, but maybe they're just psychopathic.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe this is the beginning of this journey.
They would have to be psychotic.
That switch never flipped in their brains until they met each other.
Yep.
And then suddenly they become so obsessed with each other that
and you hear serial killers, like throughout history and stuff like that, and these serial killers, they almost went to that childlike mentality with a lot of things, and they couldn't get themselves past seeing what they were doing was wrong. To them, it wasn't wrong.
Just like a Bonnie and Clyde type of situation.
With these characters, they didn't feel like anything they were doing wrong. They were just on a path. They knew where they wanted to go. They didn't care how they got there, as long as they got to there. And where real adults, they plan to get to that path.
And who says they stopped after this, right? Because what did they get, $200,000?
Yeah.
That's really not that much money.
No.
Not to like run away and start a new life and everything.
Well, in Cancun it is.
You can get to Cancun, but eventually you're going to run out of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
And these two, being the way they are, they're going to come up with another harebrained scheme on how to make some money and everything.
Yeah.
Now this was just a bunch of circumstances. There happened to be drugs and all that, so they took the opportunity and everything. Now, would they do that again? Would they get a taste of that lifestyle? Would Clarence be like, you know what? I handled myself pretty good in that situation. I was kind of a badass. So we could do this again. Is this going to continue? Then are they going to, start either a crime spree or I don't think they're killers, but maybe they enjoy the crime aspect of it. He's seen enough movies that
Well, in her past, she's the grew up in a small town, moved up to try to make something of herself, and then drove cross country with some random guy. You know what I mean? He was her second client, she said, I believe.
It was her first week. She had been working for Drexel for it was either 2 days or 4 days. She said, so it could have been her first client.
Right.
But if she was maybe training for a few days and then actually had her first client as Clarence or whatever, or maybe she was doing 2 to 4 days worth of clients and business and stuff before she met him and everything. But I'm sure that I just think that she probably had a couple before that.
She came from a small town, moving up, trying to make something. She was trying to be an actress, right?
I don't know if she was wanting to be an actress. I think she was just this girl who got trapped in there by her circumstances. She didn't have much. She didn't have much of an education or whatever. I think she was from somewhere, because she didn't say she had to come from somewhere. Was it Tallahassee, Florida, to find her true love? To Detroit. So she came up from Florida. And I don't know what the heck she came from. Who goes from Tallahassee to Detroit?
But
to escape Tallahassee to get to Detroit. Most people would
go to New York or something. LA.
Or escape Detroit to go to Tallahassee.
Right.
Or something like that.
And one thing I did like about this movie again was the scenery. And the
cinematography.
Yeah, it really was. For that time period, it really was really well shot.
At the beginning, when she pulled up to the theater.
Yeah.
And you got the sense like some of it's almost black and white.
Yeah.
But then you have colors that pop through, and the sunset kind of comes through.
Mm-hmm.
That was one thing that really stood out to me, was when she got to the theater and the sunset was going on, but some of it looked kind of black and white. It was a very interesting color palette.
It really was. And the weather, it wasn't perfect weather for some of these movies that you end up watching, where it's like pretty sunny weather. Because it was real Detroit weather. You know what I mean?
Well,
during the wintertime, obviously,
Yeah, and you could tell that like maybe a blue lens or something like that, blue filter, was used to make it seem darker, more dreary.
Yeah.
And, to make Detroit a dreary place, whereas then you get to LA and it's either regularly lit or overexposed because it's nice and bright and sunny and awesome there. And maybe that shows, Quentin Tarantino, that could have been in the script even. Shows that I don't know where he came from, but obviously he sees LA as like kind of like the promised land. It's a bright, happy place.
Well,
that's where movies get made.
Yeah, that's
and
what they
he
show.
loves.
Yeah, in the movies and TV and everything. But I just love the fact that he chose a city like Detroit. That's just like kind of like, it's not a huge city. It's not a small city. It's not known for being, this lavish city to live in, and it's really broken down. The city's broken down in that sense.
No offense to the people that want to live there, but it's gone through its problems. It's gone through major depressions economically and all that kind of stuff. And so you want to find a dreary place, a big place, but a dreary place for somebody to escape from. Go with Detroit.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. I think that's why he portrayed that. He portrayed some place where, obviously.
When you say he, did you mean Tony Scott or Quentin Tarantino?
No, Tarantino.
Okay.
With Tarantino, that's what I think he wanted to portray. Where Clarence grew up in Detroit. And he really wasn't doing anything with his life. Again, they threw in the obligatory comic book shop randomly,
which is probably,
showing how he's a hero.
Before.
Yeah, right, and showing he's wanting to be a hero, because of he's watching these martial arts movies and getting pumped for the star of the movie and the downtrodden person, and them coming up on top. Same thing with the hero thing, with the comic books.
Yeah,
and then going from Detroit to LA. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh, now my life's going to be better because I travel cross country to a different state, when it's sunnier and
he's not even from anywhere. He's from Tennessee, actually.
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino is from Knoxville, Tennessee, and he actually grew up in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
He actually funded Reservoir Dogs
Yeah.
by his sale of the script for True Romance. And that must have sucked for him because, you know, I'm sure many people know him well enough to know that he wants to be in control of his own work and all that kind of stuff. And so it must have been hard for him to sell one of his scripts. Not that Tony Scott didn't do a good job. He did a great job. But it must have been hard for him. But he was at least able to get some money to make Reservoir Dogs. And Empire magazine has called Reservoir Dogs the greatest independent film of all time.
Yeah.
So, and it's really what jump-started his career. So
now let me ask you this. Are you a Tarantino fan?
I am. I'm not a Tarantino fan like some people get into Tarantino, like worship and everything. But that's one of those filmmakers you go to see the movies for the art of filmmaking. I mean, the dialogue, the way it's, he's got a unique story structure for every single one of his movies. I don't know if I've seen any of his movies that were linear, from start to finish, because he always does it out of order.
Right.
And he does that because he wants you to see it from a perspective that he wants you to see it from. So, and we're going to get into this.
Would
here
you consider him a genius
movie.
In that sense?
Oh, yeah. Because, I mean, it's a matter of writing a movie and then maybe taking the scenes and taking them out of order. And when you take them out of order like that, now you have a completely different perspective.
Yeah, and we see that, I think, in Kill Bill more than anything.
And we would have seen it here, and I'll talk more about that here in just a bit. But we would have seen that here had the structure been followed by Tony Scott. But Tony Scott wanted it to be linear.
Yeah.
Just go over this movie real quick. It stars Christian Slater as Clarence Worley, Patricia Arquette as Alabama Whitman, who becomes Alabama Worley.
Yeah.
Dennis Hopper as Clarence's dad, Clifford Worley. It also stars Val Kilmer, Gary Oldman, Brad Pitt, Christopher Walken, Samuel L. Jackson, Michael Rappaport, James Gandolfini. I mean, when you hear this cast, now we say that a lot. Cast. We say that a lot, and everything. But I mean, I maybe that's just because the movies we're picking. It has these amazing casts.
Well, I mean, look at the all-star cast. I mean, in every single one of his films, in Tarantino's films, he does this. He puts in these stars. I mean, to be honest with you, Samuel L. Jackson probably wouldn't be where he's at if it wasn't Tarantino, and that's my opinion, of course.
Well, and a lot of people say, they've asked, it's a question that's asked a lot: is Quentin Tarantino racist? Should he be? Because he uses the N-word in a lot of his movies, pretty much all of them. So is he racist? They asked Samuel L. Jackson about this, and he says, Samuel L. Jackson said it's impossible for Quentin Tarantino to be a racist, and this is why. It's because, and I think this movie aside, and I think Reservoir Dogs aside as well, he says that Quentin Tarantino always writes the best parts for Samuel L. Jackson, to where nobody usually gets the better of him. He's the person who comes out on top or gives them more moral advice and is the smartest person. So he's like, I don't see how he could write roles for me like that and be a racist.
Well, and that's the thing with him playing like Mace Windu. I heard Samuel L. Jackson's like that a lot, where he has to play, if he's going to play a character, he has to play a character that basically comes out at the end, whether or not it's like a big thing or just a small little thing where he's just kind of out in the end. Because, I mean, I'm sure you read about it too, but they're talking about how, they're going to try to work it, or Samuel L. Jackson has an idea for where they can work it so Mace Windu is actually not really dead in the Star Wars universe. He's also come out, Samuel L. Jackson's come out and said a lot of controversial things about that matter in particular, but at the same time, you get great flicks from Quentin Tarantino, so where it doesn't matter what race you are, you enjoy his films. I mean, it's just they're great films. Every single one of them. He did what, Django Unchained, or something like that.
He did Django Unchained, and that's the thing is that usually you have, there's the N-word in movies a lot and derogatory terms towards black people in particular.
Yeah.
But it's usually done by despicable characters you're supposed to hate anyways.
Yeah.
So you could explain it away like that. It's like, well, it's just a real life, depiction.
We're not explaining it that way. We're just referring to
this is how people talk. This is just how the world is, and we're showing it now. in this movie, it has a very likable character in Clarence's dad, played by Dennis Hopper, who has some kind of racist remarks.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you explain that away, other than it was just a different time, and that he knew that Sicilians or Italian people, you know, they don't, you know, there's some racism there towards black people, historically. And so, you know, when he's like,
now, if that's a fact, tell me, am I lying? 'Cause you're part eggplant.
Hey. You're a cantaloupe.
That was totally lib too. That was not scripted.
Those two parts right there. But yeah, you know, it's one of those things like, well, okay, is he laughing because your ancestors are black and it's supposed to be a bad thing, or does he not really care, but he knows that would offend the Vincenzo character that Christopher Walken played because he knows that he's Sicilian and was probably racist against black people.
Well, I'm sure it had a lot to do with that, just in the simple fact he knew he was not going to be making it out of there. You know, he knew his outcome. Dennis Hopper's character knew his outcome. Knew where what was going to end up happening. You know, they were just going to let him go.
We don't have to stay in the racism thing too much. Christopher Walken, Quentin Tarantino movies have been talked ad nauseum about the racist thing and everything. And you know, you and I are two white guys, so we should probably just stop talking about it anyways.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying with his film, like having Christopher Walken in this film, I wanted more of him. I felt like I wanted more of that character.
Yeah, I wanted him to come out at the end.
At the end,
with his
and that's kind of the thing that blew me away most about this movie, I think.
But he's more of a high level thing, and he actually made the comment, which I thought was awesome, is that, you know, I haven't killed anybody since 1980, whatever it was that he said. Yeah. He hadn't killed anybody in years, but he took pleasure in killing Dennis Hopper's character for what he said and everything. But I think that he made that point, like, look, I'm here to get answers, and I'm here to get answers quick and to intimidate. Now I'm going to send my guys to go do the easy.
But I mean, you have these two awesome actors. I mean, phenomenal actors. I mean, the late great, you know, Dennis Hopper in this film. And it was like for what he played in this role. I mean, he just did it perfectly.
This is an iconic. It has to be an iconic scene, and I put it up there with the diner scene in Heat between Pacino and De Niro.
Oh yeah.
You know, whenever you have because, you know, with every scene you have a tough guy and you have a not so tough guy, or maybe you have two tough guys, but you have one that you're showing is superior to the other in a scene in some way.
Well, okay. On that,
in what?
What about Speed between Dennis Hopper and Keanu Reeves? You know, the elevator scene most of all.
Yeah, but I don't have Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves isn't that top tier
I know
actor.
that. But what I'm saying is that those two tough guy actors, you know, both of them are really kind of, you know, which one's the toughest? You know, you got Keanu Reeves? Or Dennis Hopper?
Dennis Hopper was definitely the alpha male in that situation because I mean, he knew what was going on. Jack in that movie was completely oblivious. You know, he charges into situations without thinking, wants to be the hero and everything. So, and obviously Dennis Hopper's character got away in that. But I'm talking about, like, you know, you usually have a situation like that where it's like, well, yeah, Keanu Reeves may be physically tougher, but he's got nothing compared to Dennis Hopper's character, who has had experience, and talks down to Jack and knows he's
flexing
smart,
his brain,
knows he's smarter than him and stuff like that. But in movies in scenes like The Heat with De Niro and Pacino, and in scenes like this where you have two people that are not only fantastic Oscar-winning actors like this,
right,
but they're on the same level intellectually. They're probably pretty close to each other physically. The one used to be a cop. He's obviously a seasoned cop, and he's probably like a security guard or something now. But he's older and he's got this experience.
Yeah.
And Vincenzo, played by Christopher Walken, he's younger, but he still got probably the same amount of experience because being in that mob world and being a mob boss like he was, or even a sub boss like he was, you know, because he did work for somebody. But he's seen a lot, he's done a lot, and everything. Like you said, he hasn't had to kill anybody since. But Dennis Hopper's what is his name? Clifford. In this movie, he knew exactly. So he tried to. When do you think he knew he was a dead man? In that scene,
the moment they showed up.
Really?
With his experience, the moment they showed up, I feel like that he knew what was coming. That's why he, pulled out all the stops.
I could agree with that, but he did lie a couple times. It felt like he was maybe trying to lie his way out of it, but I think that was more for Clarence and Alabama's benefit. He knew he was dead as soon as he kind of woke up.
Name. They mentioned his son's name, I think, was the moment.
As soon as he woke up and looked around and saw Italians, mob-looking people, trench coats, they're looking around his part. They've assaulted him. They punched him. He doesn't know where his dog is. As soon as that happened, and he woke up and saw the situation he was in, before he even said one word, he knew he was dead.
Yeah.
Do you know who I am, Mr. Woolley?
I give up. Who are you?
The Antichrist. You got me in a vendetta kind of mood. You tell the angels in heaven you never seen evil so singularly personified as you did in the face of the man who killed you. My name is Vincent Kirkcaldy. I work as consul for Mr. Blue Boyle, the man your son stole from. I hear you were once a cop, so I can assume you've heard of us before. Am I correct?
I've heard of Blue Boyle.
I'm glad. Hopefully, that will clear up the how full of shit of my question you've been asking yourself. We're going to have a little Q&A. And at the risk of sounding redundant, please make your answers genuine. You want a Chesterfield?
No.
I have a son, my own, about your boy's age. I can imagine how painful this must be for you. But Clarence and that bitch-whore girlfriend of his brought this all on themselves. I implore you not to go down that road with them. You can always take comfort in the fact you never had a choice. We talked to your neighbors. They saw a Cadillac. Purple Cadillac. Clarence's purple Cadillac parked in front of your trailer yesterday. Mr. Woolley. You're getting angry, asking the same question a second time. Where did they go?
They didn't tell me. Now, you just wait a minute and listen to me. I haven't seen Clarence in 3 years. He shows up yesterday with a young girl, saying that he got married. He asked for some quick cash to go on a honeymoon. He asked me if he could borrow $500. I felt like helping him, so I wrote him out a check. We went to breakfast in the morning, and that's the last I saw of him. So help me God. They never thought to tell me where they were going, and I never thought to ask.
But now it was like, okay, how can I throw them off so that Clarence can stay alive and that Alabama can stay alive and all that? Because it was almost like he was trying to lie for himself, and then finally he resigned and said, I think I will take that cigarette now.
Yeah.
Which scenes like that in movies always like get me pumped and everything. Oh, I'll take my life. Like they're making that sacrificial moment. Like, I know I'm about to die, so they're trying to be brave about it. Let me have a cigarette before I die or whatever. But he knew exactly what to say to get at that Vincenzo character, and the racism kind of, saying that, the Moors came up and slept with all the Sicilians. Yeah. And that's why, you are part eggplant. And now eggplant is a very derogatory term. It's because, I think it's used in Italy and everything. But I mean, because eggplants are so dark. Yeah. They can be purple, but they can be so dark purple they look black and everything. So that's a racial term. But in that moment, that wasn't scripted. That was Dennis Hopper's line, says, and you're part eggplant. And then Christopher Walken says, you're a cantaloupe, and they start laughing. And I think that laughter was real because they ad-libbed those two lines. Yeah. But the whole thing, the way the reason that story was unfolded is because, they did their little, I'm going to see how much I can get away with lying. And then they broke it down and got real. And Christopher Walken was like,
Sicilians are great liars. Best in the world. I'm Sicilian. My father was the world heavyweight champion of Sicilian liars. From growing up with him, I learned the pantomime. There are 17 different things a guy can do when he lies to give himself away. Guy's got 17 pantomimes. Woman's got 20. Guy's got 17. But if you know them, like you know your own face, they'd be lie detectors all to hell. Now, what we got here is a little game of show and tell. You don't want to show me nothing, but you tell me everything. I know you know where they are, so tell me. Before I do some damage you won't walk away from.
Could I have one of those Chesterfields now?
and he uses the point that that it's a Sicilian thing. I'm Sicilian. He's so proud of being Sicilian, and Sicilian can spot liars. I've been raised by liars. I know. He goes, you are not telling me anything, but you're showing me everything. You know, all this kind of stuff. Like, I got your number.
Yeah.
And so Clifford flips it on him.
Yeah.
And he goes, okay, you're Sicilian, right? And so he tells him the history of Sicilians. And knowing that it'll rile him up because, you know, they generally don't like black people or whatever, by saying that his ancestors are black. And he goes, now, if I'm lying, or what did he say? If you can tell the truth, or what did he say? He said something like, you know, am I lying?
Yeah.
You know, or no, he goes, if that's a fact, am I lying? Or tell me I'm lying, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so if he's right, Christopher Walken, if he's right, then he's got to admit that story was true.
Yeah.
But if he's wrong and he really can't tell liars, then he can just pretend that that's not true.
Yeah.
And everything. So either way, he's now put Christopher Walken's Vincenzo character in a corner to where either way he's gonna look bad.
Yeah.
You know, if he says, yeah, you're lying, then, you know, he now is just denying what the facts are, because obviously Clifford was telling the truth. Yeah. But if he admitted it, now he's put him in the corner to where it incensed him so bad, where he just starts laughing and he even kisses the guy.
Yeah.
And then he grabs the gun and he kills him and everything. He made him so mad. That's what I love about that scene. Clifford knowing exactly what he did, and it does it in a way where he's not even thinking about Clarence now.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, it's
now
almost
it was
like
stupid they had their information up on the fridge. That sucks, but you know,
it would have been kind of cool to have those two characters, you know, almost have their own story, like a side story. You know what I mean? Now, granted, Dennis Hopper did get killed. I mean, it's not
like
shown.
You mean if they had a side story like together, if they had history together or something?
Yes. I think
Maybe.
that would be like kind of a cool.
Like if he was like
story.
If the Sicilian dude was like Dennis Hopper's first caller, he was a rookie. The Vincenzo guy was just starting out in the mob or something like that. Yeah, that would have been a little interesting. Well, and anybody else writing the story might have done something like that.
And you see, you know, and it makes a good point in movies. You know, you see this happen quite often, but or you don't see it happen often enough. You know, Dennis Hopper gets punched right in the nose. You know, by Christopher Walken's character.
I have a note on that.
And he makes a good point, and Mike Tyson said something about this once. You know, it was saying that, you know, basically Mike Tyson was saying how, you know, everybody's pretty much a bad guy, or you know, you think you're a tough guy until you get punched in the face.
Until you get hit in the nose.
Yeah, and you get hit in the nose and the face.
Nothing hurts worse than that.
No, and Christopher Walken was right. You know, once you get punched in the nose, it disorients you.
That's so crazy that you said that, because I wrote down this note. It smarts, doesn't it? That's what he says. It says it smarts, doesn't it? Getting slammed in the nose.
Look, I'd like to help you if I could, but I haven't seen Clarence.
You see that? And smarts, doesn't it? You're slammed in the nose. Fucks you all up. Get that pain shooting through your brain, your eyes fill up with water. That ain't it kind of fun?
And that's a perfect description of it, because when you get punched in the nose, the only word to describe it is you got slammed in the nose,
Yeah.
because that's what it feels. It feels like the worst.
Yeah.
Whenever you get punched in the face.
blood rushes up into your nose, fills
just-
your nose, and you just disorient.
It's such a good adjective.
It really is, and you would think that in some of these movies. I mean, again, I'm not a fighter. I'm not a one of these professional fighters or whatever. But you think about it, in these movies and stuff, how many of these movies would be solved if you just punch somebody right in the nose? They might actually start rethinking their life at that point.
Yeah, because typically you get into fights, you get punched in the face, and you come back and start punching. When you get rocked in the nose like that, sometimes you have to take a break, because that's not a fun time.
It'd be like
that just disorients you, and it's not a fun thing.
Yeah, if McClane would have hit Hans in the nose, he would have been like, okay, let's pack it up, let's go home back to Germany. I don't have to fall off a building or nothing like that. But as long as all McClane would have had to do was punch him right in the nose, and then the movie would have been over.
I was trying to think of what made me laugh so hard. Okay. I don't like Pearl Harbor. I thought was a good movie. I don't mind. Like, I know a lot of people don't like it, and I get it. And it's
a big
love
blockbuster
story
type movie.
Yeah, but I mean, like half of it was this weird love story where Kate Beckinsale just can't decide.
Nobody watched that movie for that story, really.
Whatever.
Yeah,
but when he already has that nose injury, he got hit in the nose, and then they're sitting on the bench, and he opens the champagne and it pops him in the nose, and he goes, oh, and his eyes start watering, and he goes, oh, that hurts something fierce.
God, it hurts. It hurts something fierce.
And this is one of these amazing times that Ben Affleck does really good acting. And when he's just like, oh, that hurts something fierce. Just like his head is like vibrating because it hurts so bad and his eyes are watering. It hurts to get hit in the nose.
Yeah.
So him saying, getting slammed in the nose, that's a very good word.
Yeah, absolutely. But so we go on to that, and then they basically, it's implied that he gets shot. Christopher Walken shoots Dennis Hopper, and then that story is over with. I kind of felt a little let down because that wasn't brought up.
What wasn't brought up?
The fact that he killed his dad. You know what I mean? It wasn't.
Clarence never found out on screen that his dad got killed.
You didn't see his reaction, and I'm kind of wondering what his reaction really would be. I mean, would it be anger, sadness? I mean, I'm sure he's going to have sadness as his dad and everything, and his dad, raised him and whatnot. But, I mean, do you really think that it probably would have affected Alabama probably more, because she loved his dad. You know what I mean? I mean, she
and he did too. He didn't
Yeah.
want to help him at first because he wasn't sure what they were into. But
do you think we would have saw anger from him more so than anything, or just kind of?
I think obviously, I think he probably realized as soon as the mob guys were there, because his dad had told him that Drexel guy was hooked into the mob, and so I think the only way they would have known that he was in L.A. is from because his dad is the only one that knew, because it was written on the piece of paper.
Even though they were making stupid decision after stupid decision.
But I mean who would know that they'd go to L.A.?
Yeah, they're pretty much like hanging out at the corner trying to sell all that coke. You know what I mean?
Trying to get film studio executives to buy it and everything. But what do you think of Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette? They're very odd choices for. Well, Patricia Arquette, I guess I would say, was kind of an odd choice for a female lead.
But the good thing of casting somebody like her in this film, she didn't take away from Christian Slater's acting or his character.
They have very good chemistry.
They did, and they worked really well together. And
I think they dated, didn't they? Maybe.
Who knows? But they worked really good together. They mashed together. They just it was a good choice, I think, in the long run. I think I'm not a huge fan of Juliette Lewis. I'm not, because I just feel like she plays almost the same character in almost every film in a way. And even on TV, like watching her on My Name is Earl or something like that, she's still playing that kind of crazy but yet broken character. You know what I mean? In that
Who
show.
Gets her butt kicked by,
by Jamie Presley, which was awesome.
When's the first time you remember seeing
Juliette Lewis?
No. Patricia Arquette in a movie.
I want to say, was it that one where she gets the
Yep, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
Stigmata.
Stigmata, that's it.
Yeah, that's the first time I remember seeing her.
She comes from royalty, though, from acting royalty.
Yeah, there's a lot of Arquettes in Hollywood and stuff. But I also remember her in Little Nicky as the real nerdy girl.
Yes. Remember, we did get her. We did a podcast over one of her brother's films. Actually,
We did
in Scream. So
well, yep. And then we also Alexis Arquette was in She's All That.
That's right. That's right.
As the performer up on stage and everything. But yeah, and obviously, she was in your favorite, what's considered to be a huge fan favorite of the Nightmare on Elm Street series in Part 3, Dream Warriors, and that was her very, very first credit. Yeah. And she was the lead in the Nightmare on Elm Street.
That's right. For some reason, I don't know, because she does tend to play a lot of these kind of damsel in distress type characters a lot,
but they end up fighting for her own.
Yeah, and then end up realizing that they're a lot stronger than they started out to be. You know, just like in this movie, she was very kind of innocent, doe-eyed, childlike.
Freddy, Stigmata, even Little Nicky.
Yeah,
So she does a lot of those. And what was that TV show she was on for a while? What was it? That's going to take me off. See, I think she was in a CSI one for a while. She was in Boardwalk Empire for a while. I thought, Medium.
Medium, that's it. Yeah,
Medium. Yeah. That's what she had done. But yeah, she's all right. Christian Slater is quite the personality, isn't he?
He really is. You either don't like him or you like him a lot. There's no in between, I think, with his.
But he's always such he's got a cool, laid back charm. He's got this drawl to his voice. Who does he remind you of?
Emilio Estevez.
Emilio Estevez?
Yes.
I feel like, and I think it's been compared that there's comparisons to be made with him and Jack Nicholson. Because there are some roles where they're like, yeah, you kind of did Jack Nicholson in this, and he admitted, like, yeah, I did. I had watched a Jack Nicholson movie, and I have no shame about it. But he always has that, that drawl, I can't even do it right, but just that drawl and that punctuated way of talking. It's kind of sarcastic. The way he's putting it out there, and it's punchy and everything.
Well, that's kind of why I feel like Emilio Estevez in a way is like that too. I mean, Emilio does a lot of comedy type movies, but at the same time, he's got that draw where it's like, nobody really ever talks bad about him, or nobody really even says, okay, he's Oscar worthy performance here and there. He's just kind of in the middle, and I think that's where he lives, just like Emilio Estevez.
Maybe I've always seen Christian Slater is way more laid back than Emilio Estevez. He's just like this kind of guy with confidence that even if he's not all that, he's got the confidence like he's all that and everything. And it's great for this movie because Clarence starts out as this film nerd, right? And he knows everything about film, kung fu, Elvis, all this kind of stuff.
Books, stuff like
right. That. Basically Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
And he knows all this stuff and has all this stuff, but he's stayed pretty stagnant his whole life. He talks to a girl at the bar at the beginning, the whole, I'd F Elvis, the little speech that he had.
She's just like, okay.
Yeah, and but that's what I'm saying is, because she'd say, oh, I'd do the same. Even though he's not supposed to be a very, just very popular with the ladies or whatever, or just a lonely guy, doesn't have any friends, no girlfriends or anything like that.
Failure to launch in
but
a way.
He's still such this charismatic, charming guy. So it's like he's always had that, and he's probably gotten it from movies. Yeah. He talks like James Dean or cool, movie characters. But it's just never done anything in his life because he didn't know what his purpose was or whatever. And so I feel like as soon as Alabama came into his life, he switches into movie mode, right?
Okay.
Who in their right mind would go to a pimp? Why wouldn't they just run away?
Yeah.
Right? Who in their right mind would, first of all, go to the pimp, and second of all, go to the pimp with an attitude and a speech that is going to...
at least have to know,
he gave them an empty envelope and brought a gun and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, he was going in there to be confrontational.
I'm not eating because I'm not hungry. I'm not sitting because I'm not staying. I ain't looking at the movie because I already seen it 7 years ago. It's the Mac. Max Julian, Carol Speed, and Richard Pryor. I ain't scared of you, I just don't like you. And that envelope right there had some payoff money. Alabama's moving on to some greener pastures. We're not negotiating. I don't like to barter. What's in that envelope right there is for my peace of mind. My peace of mind is worth that much, not 1 penny more.
See you.
Marty, you know what we got here? Motherfucking Charlie Bronson.
Mr. Majestic.
Look at here, Charlie. None of this bullshit is necessary. I don't got no hold over Alabama. I just trying to lend a girl a helping hand.
Who would do that? Not a person that spends their nights in comic book stores and in a movie theater. But Clarence, I think, is so wrapped up into movies and his kung fu movies and whatever it is. He's seen all the bad boys, the anti-heroes, the different things like that, and he's adopted those sensibilities. And, so is he a badass? No, but I mean, he has enough confidence and enough experience in watching movies that he can act like one. And by doing that, yeah, he eventually does kind of become that badass character, because by the time she's writing "You're So Cool" on a napkin, I mean, everything he's done has worked out, and it's all been due to his confidence. Even the cops, when he was holding that gun up to that dude in the elevator, even the cops are like, "Oh, I like this Clarence dude. He's a crazy one, you know." And this was a kid that was sitting in the theater by himself a week ago, not doing anything. And
well, that's why I felt like them. It kind of was like, again, a yin yang situation where neither one were complete without the other. And I still go back to say I feel like the true romance doesn't really fit it so much, But
I just say true romance fits because it reminds me of a fairy. Like if Quentin Tarantino were to write a modern day fairy tale, this is what you'd get. Right.
But that's why I think them together is basically like one person, like basically Quentin Tarantino in that sense. I feel like that he wouldn't have done this stuff if he hadn't met her, and she wouldn't have basically done anything if she hadn't met him. And then once they met each other, they became one in that sense.
Right. They had to bring each other out. But that's what I've always taken it as soon as she comes into his life and she tells him what he does and that she has a pimp and all this kind of stuff, he goes into the bathroom and starts talking to his little imaginary Elvis friend, and they didn't get to the rights from the Elvis's estate to feature him in this movie.
But we all
so that's
know.
why you never see his face really, and that's why in the credits he's not listed as Elvis. He's listed as mentor. Mentor as Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer obviously plays the imaginary Elvis mentor.
Did you know it was Val Kilmer? Like the first word he spoke.
Maybe not back in the day. I've always known that he played it, but it's one of those things like I don't remember a time when I was like that I didn't know that it wasn't Val Kilmer. I think I had read it somewhere and I either knew it or I was like, oh, that's cool. But I don't remember.
When you first watch it, I guarantee you probably, even for the avid viewer, I mean, I understood it because I'd seen it before and then I watched it again. And so I already kind of knew it was Val Kilmer. I mean, I knew it was Val Kilmer. But at the time, it's just his voice is very, you can't mistake his voice for really a lot of other people, you know.
So do you think it's what I was getting at? Do you think Clarence confronting Drexel? Do you think he did that because that's what they do in movies? He's seen it done many times, and we all have this fantasy, right? And I heard this the other day. Everybody has a fantasy of like if there's a shooter or some kind of crazy events going on, you're going to be the hero to save people or whatever, right? So is he thinking that? Is he looking at movies and has a situation with Alabama where they could just run, but no, that's not what you do. In movies, you go and confront the person, you give them the finger, and you do your badass thing. Or do you think maybe it was a thing because his dad was a cop and he felt a sense of duty?
Well, are you talking about like his motivation?
Like why did he do that? Because he was a guy that sat in a theater and didn't do anything, sat in a comic book store and didn't do anything. He meets this girl and sees that she's got a pimp and everything, knowing that it's a dangerous world. He probably wasn't even thinking about the mob being connected to it all and all that. But I mean, going and being confrontational like that, when it seems like he's gone his whole life without doing much of that,
Yeah.
Do you think that was because of a movie thing where he's now like, okay, I need to be like this action hero. I need to be this hero for Alabama. Or do you think it's more of just like either him being a naive kid or a sense of duty because his dad was a cop? What do you think?
I think he was
made him act this way.
I think he was love drunk in a way where we're to the point where, you know, he wasn't thinking anything else but, you know, impressing Alabama. I mean, because they got married after one day,
right?
You know, or one evening actually, and I think it was more so because he was kind of like love drunk in a way that he wasn't thinking about any consequences. All he was thinking about doing was impressing her, and you know, basically getting her stuff back. You know what I mean, and showing to her that he can be that man for her, and that, you know, husband for her or whatever, and take care of her. You know, I feel like it was just more of, because probably his dad, that's the way his dad raised him to be, you know, to look out for the little guy, you know, and to help anybody, and, you know, take care of your family and things like that, you know, because they did try to throw a little bit of his family life in there, you know, about his mom and, you know, and his dad, and how his, you know, he grew up basically to be like his dad, except for the whole career choice in that sense.
I've always think, you know, I always thought just because of Clarence's oddness and his mercurial nature, it just makes him come off as, you know, mysterious and possibly dangerous. You know, there's always been kind of a possibly dangerous slant to Christian Slater's eyes where, you know, even when he's playing a good guy, you think he could be a bad guy or a bad boy really quickly. But, you know,
because of psychosis.
Yeah. And, you know, she's always saying, you know, you're so cool. He is cool.
Yeah.
But I think that's because he's an amalgamation of every badass character he's ever seen.
Yeah.
And it just took Alabama to turn him into a hero or anti-hero.
And
I'm doing air quotes,
right.
So you can't see,
yeah.
but
like you were saying, you know, earlier, that, you know, I think a lot of it too is that they really are both two psychopaths. You know, because the thing is they don't see what they're doing is wrong. All they see is the possible outcome, the reward. You know what I mean? They don't see the risk involved in it, and they don't want to see the risk. They don't care about the risk. All they care about is the reward at the end of the rainbow, you know, and then that's what they're looking towards. They don't care who they have to step on. That's why he went to his dad, said, "Hey, I'm going to borrow some money, and we're leaving. We're leaving."
Yeah, roped his dad into it, knowing his dad would be put in an odd situation.
Right. And telling him to ask his cop buddies about so-and-so, you know, and you know, I feel like he was just kind of, you know, he's like, I'm starting over, and I don't care how I'm getting there. You know, him and Alabama are like, we don't care how we're going to get there. We're going to get there. And, you know, let the risk be gone. You know, who cares?
I like when he's like, I swear to God, Dad, she tastes like a peach.
Yeah.
And then he kisses her as she gets, and then they let her.
Like a peach.
Some bitch was right. Tastes like a peach. Come on, Rommel. Come on, boy. Come on.
Gary Oldman, I don't know. What are your opinions?
I thought it was good. I thought his performance was good. I mean, he said that this is basically his favorite performance, you know. And
has he?
Yeah, he's actually said that this was, when it was asked what his favorite performance, he says it was
now
this one.
Or up until then.
I can't remember, but I know pretty recently he's actually said that, where, you know, they've asked him what his favorite role was, and he said it was this one in particular. And I don't even think he got paid for it, you know. I mean, to the point where well, he might have got paid for it, but it was like, you know, that he didn't even try out for it, in the sense that they said, basically they told him what the role was, and he said, okay. He said, done.
Well, yeah, because it was Tony Scott wanted him, and he was trying to tell him what the movie was, and Tony Scott said, look, I'm not good at explaining the role. And Gary Oldman said, yeah, okay, well, that's fine. Just tell me what the character is. And he goes, well, he's a pimp who thinks he's black, but he's white. And Gary Oldman's like, I'll do it. You know,
yeah,
automatically,
yeah.
I'll do it. You know, and, you know, he had heard somebody talking like he talks in the movie and asked him to record him. And so he had him say a bunch of stuff and then started practicing his lines and all that. And that's where he got that from. But it's one of these transformative performances where not a bit of Gary Oldman cracks through.
No, not at all.
It's all that character who thinks he's black. And all and the whole intimidation between him and Clarence, saying you ain't looked at that TV once. When I know I'm pretty, but I ain't that pretty. You know, that type of thing. and he, he's swinging the light back and forth, and he thinks he's good and all that, but then Clarence is able to twist around. He's like, first of all, I've seen this movie. I don't want to eat because I'm not hungry. I don't want to sit down because I'm not going to stay long.
Yeah.
And that's when the badass character of Clarence comes out, but for the first time. But yeah, his performance, I thought he went out pretty quickly. I thought for what he was in this movie that he'd maybe be the one.
The main
chasing him after cross country, going to LA or whatever.
Yeah, that did kind of surprise me.
I just wanted to see more of it.
Yeah, he just got killed right off the bat, and you just not right off the bat, but kind of right off the bat, and it just
for being Clarence's first murder. It's quite an interesting choice, I guess.
Well, and he murders. He's just a murderer. He's just a bad guy. You know what I mean? So then again, he's saying probably a lot of words he probably shouldn't be saying because, again, he is a degenerate character that Quentin Tarantino just kind of threw in there to just be a derogatory character.
Yeah. Yeah. In Gary Oldman, he just plays so... whenever he plays a role, it's just so transformative.
He played Winston Churchill. How did he pull that off?
Of that and Dracula and I mean Sirius Black. That probably wasn't too far off from how he really is or whatever. But
to a point, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just whenever he gets in these roles where he really just transforms himself, transforms his voice. The whole we talked about him in The Fifth Element. When he was. That character in there with his little his weird southern accent and everything.
Well, and if you notice, a lot of these movies, Quentin Tarantino likes to he likes the leading men in all of his movies to be extremely strong, but all the women are stronger in all his movies. If you've noticed.
Oh yeah. They definitely. I mean, look at Jackie Brown. Pulp Fiction and Reservoir Dogs, maybe not so much, but then Kill Bill Volume 2, Inglourious Basterds. You had what was her name?
She was at the very beginning of the movie. Yeah,
Farewell.
She was the one hiding under the
Shoshana. That was her name. So he goes, farewell, Shoshana.
But in this film, you have a strong female lead with her character strong.
Natural born killer.
Exactly. And, which is kind of cool that he does that, in the sense that, just because they're a woman, they're not any weaker than these men. And he shows that. He shows that they have that strength and that they're just stronger in certain areas. In better areas than men, in certain areas,
So did you think that Alabama was going to die? I did. I like I know you say, oh well, I knew because I've seen this before, but I got the sense that scene is supposed to make you think that, okay, she's going through all this
with James Gandolfini,
and like Christian Slater's going to come back, or Clarence is going to come back and find her dad, and just lose his and go after like the whole mob, right? That's very cinematic. That's very movie-like.
Which he probably, in all reality, probably wouldn't get very far by himself.
You'd say that, but Clarence made it this far, being the theater nerd that just watched movies.
Yeah.
Hell, movies have watched him do that. Maybe he watched Walking Tall or any of these movies where you have man going after this huge group of people.
But remember, really, he did it with Alabama, though. And that's where I keep going back.
But I think it would be like a revenge thing or something. But
I see what you're saying.
That's the point. She was getting her butt handed to her. I mean, that's one of the hardest scenes for me to watch.
Me too.
I don't like watching scenes where it's like somebody that's a woman, especially, getting beat that badly and that bloody and everything.
Yeah.
But she can't. But I do go through it because I know she comes out on top.
Yeah.
And I know that. It's not Clarence running in to save the day and to save her. She's won that fight.
This is the point I'm making.
Before he came in. Yeah, so I was kind of piling on that.
And with don't get me wrong, like James Gandolfini was one of my favorite actors. Still is to this day. I mean, he's passed.
I've still
already.
Never seen The Sopranos.
Oh man. Love The Sopranos, man. I've watched it several times now. But, he's just such a good actor. But he plays, I mean, he tends to be pigeonholed with pigeonholed with a lot of his characters. I mean, he plays the mob gangster, the Italian mob gangster type character. But then you get a lot of these ones where he's playing general. It's not about his race or anything, but he does such a good role, does such good acting in everything he does, and then in this one he did just as well. You know, I mean, that especially that interaction with Brad Pitt, who is, you know, one of the biggest actors.
Talk about Floyd.
Yeah, one of the biggest actors on the planet, and he's playing this role in this movie where it's just basically like
now
he's
back
just
then
the stoner idiot.
He wasn't quite Brad Pitt.
No.
So he did Thelma and Louise with Tony Scott, obviously. Was it Tony Scott that did Thelma and Louise? I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure.
But anyways, he had done that, and you know they had actually considered Brad Pitt for Clarence, which I don't think would have worked out as well. Not with the Brad Pitt that was back then, or maybe even any Brad Pitt. But they're just not right for the Brad Pitt's a great actor, just not right for the character. I don't think.
Yeah, well, he says, "Don't condescend me."
Yeah, he's like, "Condescend me, man. I'll kill you."
Yeah.
All right, you take care. I might be back.
Yeah, man. Okay, be cool. You condescend me, man. I'll fucking kill you, man.
You know, just the way he
to James Gandolfini's. I mean,
after he walked away, and he says it real quietly.
His
and all
huge
that
frame.
kind of,
I mean, and then with his acting with Patricia Arquette, it was pretty awesome because he was able to control it. And you know, in Sopranos, he had a little bit of this. You know, he hit women and stuff like that. And again, that's very hard to see. But I've got to believe, especially in our culture today, that wouldn't, if he wasn't like that at all, that. Like, if he was actually like this character, I mean, he would have been canceled a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
Which we know he's not to this day. You know?
If you look at what's his name, Jeremy Piven.
Yeah.
You might get confused with your character, the way he puts it.
Right. But it's you know, he does a really, really good job in this movie. I mean, she ends up whooping him at the end, you know, and but, you know, he played such a devious, just had no remorse, no morals, really type character in this film, and I thought he did it really well. And just to react with Brad Pitt's character, who happened to be just kind of go with the flow, really not that important person, really has no aspirations, you know, and to deal with somebody who's just kind of happy-go-lucky. And then James Gandolfini is just pure evil character. And same thing with, you know, Alabama, how she was so pure and so sweet and loving everybody, but you know, he was just such an evil person.
But like, do you remember when he punched her, the look he gave?
Yeah. Because he punched her in the nose,
but
too.
He punched her, and then when she falls, he like looks up and is like, "Oopsie!" You know, It was a really weird look that he made.
But that's the evilness.
Did you know Tom Sizemore was supposed to play that character?
Well, he plays a lot of movie characters in his film. I mean,
he was in this one. So he played a cop, and Sean Penn's brother Chris Penn played the other cop.
And didn't he pass away?
He did pass away a while ago, and we'll probably get more into him because he's in some movies that we're going to talk about in the future. Yeah. But yeah, Tom Sizemore, who played more the louder cop, the come on, you know, whatever they're encouraging. What's his name to press on? Don't let Clarence scare him and everything, but. He was originally wanted. Tony Scott wanted him for the gangster character that beat up Alabama, and he goes, he didn't want to do that. He'd rather play the cop. That scene in particular with him beating up Alabama, he said it was too hard for him to do. And you know, you have actors out there that don't want to play characters that do certain things because they're afraid that it will then typecast them or kind of tarnish what they are. You know, I can play a tough guy and I can play a jackass, but I draw the line at hitting women, that type of thing. But he did recommend James Gandolfini, who was at that point just like a stage actor. Yeah. And so he recommended him. But Brad Pitt had done Thelma and Louise with Tony Scott's brother, Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott's the one that did Thelma.
I knew it was
and
a
Louise.
Scott somewhere there.
It was a Scott and everything. But he had also done, before this one, he'd done Cool World. You know, one of those first animation mixed with real world movie, type of things. Yeah.
I watched it and I was just like, I don't know if I should be watching this at my age. You know, I mean, it's especially with the cartoons.
One last thing before we get into our favorites and our worsts. This movie was written, as all Quentin Tarantino movies was written, out of order.
Yeah.
And Tony Scott wanted it to be linear. He wanted it to be from start to finish.
Except for the intro and the outro. Well, more so the intro.
Kind of, but I mean, so here's what happened. Here's how it was. So the original structure was pretty close to the movie. So the original structure started off with the I'd F Elvis scene, okay, which is how the movie starts. Then it goes to Drexel killing Samuel Jackson and the other guy and taking that drugs.
Yeah.
Now that didn't happen until after we had already met Clarence in Alabama.
Yeah.
But the original thing is we don't meet Clarence in Alabama until basically the end of the first act, beginning of the second act. So the first act was I guess you meet Clarence in the I'd F Elvis part. But I'd F Elvis, then Drexel kills Samuel Jackson, and then it cuts to Alabama and Clarence coming to his dad for help.
Yeah.
So all that stuff that happened with the pimp and Clarence doing what he does, that doesn't happen till you don't get to see that till later. So he goes to his dad for help. So that whole time we meet Clarence, we don't know what type of person he is. We don't know that he's not a badass person, right? We don't know that he's just like a film nerd that had just happened to meet this girl. For all we know, he's kind of like this mess up that his dad doesn't like or just tolerates or whatever, but he's kind of like this criminal type of guy who's doing these shady things. So, you know, we all we hear is what Christopher Walken tells, the Vincenzo character tells Dennis Hopper's character what he did. You know, your son came in there blazing, took the money, him and his whore girlfriend, blah, 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 blah. You know, they took the money, all this kind of stuff, and they left. And that's all you know. So you're like, okay, so this Clarence guy is kind of a bad guy. And then after that whole scene with the Sicilian and all that, it tells it has them going to L.A. and all that, and it's not until they get to L.A. and Dick says, "What happened? Where did you get these drugs and stuff?" Then it flashes back to him being in the theater, Alabama walking in, then them spending the night together. Her
So basically a Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what we were talking about at the beginning, is that the way he frames movies, it changes the way the movie is presented. It changes the way characters are. It changes the way the audience sees the movie, because you don't know what Clarence is until he tells his side of the story.
Yeah.
So he's a mystery. You think maybe he's just some badass guy or whatever, but it's a mystery. And then you find out he's just some film nerd that happened to stumble into this situation and decided, okay, I'm going to be one of these action heroes that I see or whatever. Yeah. So then he tells the story of meeting Alabama, what they did, all the way up to where they go to meet Dennis Hopper's dad. And then it flashes back to the present where he's with Dick again, and they show them the drugs, and, okay, we need to find somebody to buy this. So it works out not only in showing us a different way that the story's presented, which makes us see the story differently, which makes us see the characters differently, but it also does a really interesting thing, and Quentin Tarantino's talked about this. So in the beginning, the characters in the scene, in the movie, know everything.
Yeah.
Okay? Because it's starting out at Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper's scene, basically.
Yeah.
So at this point, all this other stuff has happened. We don't know anything. We don't know what's going on. So it starts off, the first act is the characters know everything, the audience doesn't know anything. And Quentin Tarantino loves to write movies like that. He loves to write things that'll make people go, okay, I don't know what's going on. What's going on? I don't know what's happening. You know, and it is entertaining that way, because the audience has a trust in the filmmaker. Okay, they're going to fix this. They're going to explain this. This is all going to be worked out. We're going to figure out what this is. So
unless it's The Tenant.
Act 2, the audience catches up. Okay, so then by the end of Act 2, we know just as much, or you know, as we're catching up, now we start to know everything that they do. But in Act 3, now we know more than the characters do. The audience knows more than the characters. The audience knows that the mob is on their way to find those guys. You know, the audience knows that Bronson Pinchot, whatever his name is, that was in Beverly Hills Cop, we know that he has now been roped in by the police to wear a wire and is going to squeal on the whole thing. we know all these different things now that the characters don't know. So it's a cool way of showing that where, we start out not knowing everything, but the characters know everything. We catch up, and now we know more than the characters, and now we're just waiting for the fireworks to happen.
Yeah.
And, stuff like that makes me love movies, makes me love cinema. When somebody thinks about that much, builds up suspense, and that's a love for the craft of storytelling. That's a love for the craft of telling a story that people are fascinated with, that are so into because they don't know what's happening, and you're building up that suspense, and you're keeping the secrets from them, and then everything comes out at once, and it's just, I don't know.
Yeah. To some, especially if this, say you just randomly picked one of his films to watch for the first time, I guarantee you're going to probably, especially if you don't watch a lot of movies, you just watch them for fun, that kind of thing. I guarantee you're going to get to that point where you're probably not going to understand it the first time you watch it. I feel like if you're not a big, not a big movie buff, but if you're not a movie buff in some sort of fashion and you have never seen a Tarantino film, it's going to be really hard to kind of keep up, I think.
Now, how do you describe Tarantino films? Because my definition of a Tarantino film is one that he wrote and directed and has complete control over. So, True Romance, I don't really consider a Quentin Tarantino movie. It's a Tony Scott movie that was written by Quentin Tarantino. It's a Quentin Tarantino movie, but it's not. You know what I mean? Same with Natural Born Killers. Same with Jackie Brown. Jackie Brown, Quentin Tarantino wrote the script for, but that story came from Elmore Leonard, who wrote Raylan and the Justified or Raylan Given stories and stuff like that. He wrote that. He wrote Out of Sight, that was turned into a movie. He wrote what was it called? Rum Punch, that got turned into Jackie Brown. Yeah. So that's not really a Quentin Tarantino movie either, because he directed Kill it, Bill, but the story came from somebody else. Yeah. But Pulp Fiction, that was like Reservoir Dogs, that was written and directed by him. All those movies from then on out. But here at the beginning, it gets a little muddy. So, and the reason I don't call this a Quentin Tarantino movie is because his vision would have ordered this in the order that I just described.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing.
Whereas Tony Scott said, this is the beginning, this is the end, it's going to go linear. So, what's your favorite part of this movie?
I'm going to have to go with... Probably it's gonna be what Dennis Hopper said. She does taste like peaches. That whole line. I mean, just
that
the way
line.
the way he delivered it. I mean, most of his parts.
Son.
Just
does take like peaches.
The way he just treats his son. And then treats her so much better. And then just kind of really kind of
so fed up with him.
Yeah,
he's much like his mom.
Yeah, his real acting in it has to be my favorite part. Yeah. What about you?
I'd say my favorite part is the scene between him and Christopher Walken. Any scene that has heavyweights like Christopher Walken, Dennis Hopper, Pacino, and De Niro, with having a scene where you're just sitting here, just you can cut the tension with butter. You're waiting everything that they're saying to each other. You're just like, oh, cinematic gold, yes. Yeah, that type of thing. But that my favorite. I have a few favorites though. I mean, my all-time favorite of this movie is that scene between those two. And not for what's behind it, but just for like for the power struggle between the two. It's mainly Christopher Walken has it because of his backup. They got this other dude in a chair, he's surrounded and everything like that. But there's still a power struggle there, and there's still one trying to get the best of the other.
Absolutely.
So I love that. I love the music that Hans Zimmer did. This the main theme of this movie is called "You're So Cool." And so that's cool to hear. I love that, and that simple line she says at the beginning, that's just the way it goes. But sometimes it goes the other way too. And it's just an awesome, amazing writing from Quentin Tarantino. What's the part you hated the most?
The very end.
Really?
You see the child and they're on the beach and everything else. I thought that was just it was just lazy.
Well, did you know in Quentin Tarantino's original story, Clarence dies?
Yeah.
In that shootout when he came back to life or whatever.
Yeah.
He was actually supposed to die and stay dead, and then she had their son and everything. And I don't know if she would have named him Elvis in the original script, but then she even made the point. It's like if he had Clarence asked me often what I would do if he had died. And she goes, probably, not much different than what I'm doing now. Though I wouldn't have named our son Elvis.
Yeah. I just thought,
did you know that was actually Patricia Arquette's son?
Yeah.
That played their son. So you didn't like how it ended?
No.
Did you not just like that he survived, or did you not like what she was saying, or that it was a happy ending, or what?
To be honest with you, they could have, in the type of film, and again, the type of films he does, the ending's not always the best ending.
They're very
in the
grim
world.
a lot.
Yeah, and so I think it would have been better if you would have seen them. That would have been the end right after the shootout, and
there's a lot of open-ended type things.
Yeah.
Like when Marcellus Wallace and Bruce Willis escape from being tied up, Marcellus Wallace lets Bruce Willis go, and he's like, I'm going to deal with this guy, and you don't really know what happens. Reservoir Dogs,
everybody dies.
Is Mr. Orange dead?
Is
that guy dead? Is Mr. White? Is all these, or Mr. Blonde? Are all these people dead? Who makes it out of there alive? Nobody knows. In Kill Bill, I guess that would be the only one that, one of the ones that kind of wraps it up. Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
You have Samuel L. Jackson and Boyd Crowder, Walton Goggins.
Yeah.
You have Samuel L. Jackson and Walton Goggins is the only one left alive, but do they survive? Who knows? So a lot of it's very open-ended.
They could have left this one, I feel like,
But Tony Scott's like a normal... I say normal. He's like a director, in the normal sense of the word.
Beginning, arc, end.
Beginning, middle, end, and you have to have an ending. You can't leave it open. But audiences don't like open endings.
I felt like they could have just ended it right after the shootout. That kind of just
with
leave
them
it
driving
open-ended.
off.
Yeah.
Did you think he should have died? Do you think he should have stayed alive? Do you think she should have died?
I thought it would have been better if he would have died. Because it wouldn't.
Quentin Tarantino
those
agrees
characters,
with you.
And I think because they are psychotic, that those characters you didn't.
They should have met their end in the bloody shootout. And
I wasn't sitting there going like, oh, I hope they live. I hope they live. I hope they live. It's the only way this will be ending. It's like, I don't really care if they die or live.
And
in
it would
this
be
film.
very Tarantino as if true romance was dying together in a shootout in a violent scene like this.
Exactly.
Like the two violent people in Pulp Fiction, Tim Roth and what's her name? I can't remember what her name was, but remember their Honey Bun and the other
Baby Cakes.
No, it was Honey Bun and something else. But those psychotic people that were in love. That reminds me of kind of like Clarence and Alabama and everything.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I really wasn't shooting for them to, when I first watched the movie, I was just one like, oh man, I hope it has a good ending. I just kind of was like, well, I hope it has an ending. That's really all I hope for in this
I just
movie.
want an ending.
I want an ending. I don't want anything eventful. I don't think that these characters deserve to,
Just don't have it be like a normal Tarantino movie. Actually give us an ending.
Yeah, well, there's that.
Amid the chaos of that day, when all I could hear was the thunder of gunshots, and all I could smell was the violence in the air, I look back and am amazed that my thoughts were so clear and true, that 3 words went through my mind endlessly, repeating themselves like a broken record. You're so cool. You're so cool. You're so cool.
Anyways, we enjoy this movie. It's a very good 90s movie. It's
Top 10 for you?
It might be, yeah. Yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
Just because of the atmosphere, the music, the nostalgia. Christian Slater does a pitch perfect, amazing job. I don't think I would have wanted anybody else in the role. I love him in this role. I love Patricia Arquette in her role. I love Dennis Hopper and what he did, Christopher Walken. It was all casted brilliantly, shot brilliantly, scored brilliantly, and written brilliantly. I don't, besides the violence, but I mean, that's more just a personal preference thing or whatever. Yeah. I don't mind violent movies, but sometimes when you can go overboard, it's like, okay, horror movies go overboard and you deal with it. But in a movie like this, I don't think you have to go too overboard. Is it that bloody when people fight? Oh yeah, it gets real bloody. Even when you get punched in the nose, you're gonna gush in blood and everything. But it's not something that we necessarily have to see. But I mean, it's Quentin Tarantino. It was early '90s, very violent movies and stuff. So I would say it was just because it's like a fairy tale. It's so odd. But the lines in it are good. The relationships between the characters are really good. I just really enjoy this movie, and maybe that's a personal preference thing. But
No, I'm right there with you, though.
yeah. So, anyways, if you guys can watch this, definitely do. I never know if it's like on Amazon, Netflix, because if I like a movie and I don't own it, I'll buy it and then I'll forget if I bought it or if it's just free on Amazon or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's on Amazon or I know I watched it off of Amazon.
Yeah. I know it's on Amazon. That's where I watched it.
They have a regular one and they have a director's cut on there.
Yeah.
So you can watch either. I'd like to see a Quentin Tarantino's a writer's cut, like cut in the way that he wanted it presented.
Yeah.
Because he said, besides the way that it was shown as far as out of order versus linearly, he said everything was basically how I wrote it.
Yeah.
Tony Scott was very faithful to the script. He just put it out. He just didn't put it in the order I wanted it to. But he said everything else was faithful. So it'd be interesting to cut this movie or to have some. I don't know. Maybe it's already been done because I know they've done it with like The Phantom Menace and different movies like that, where I think Seth Green making his own cut of The Phantom Menace, where it cuts out most of The Phantom Menace. But I want to see somebody make. Cut the movie in that order and then watch it in that order and see if it gives you any kind of a different experience. I don't know. Definitely go watch this if you get a chance. I'd say even rent it. Just be very warned. Nowadays we have to put these warnings out. I don't understand it, but I don't understand a lot of things. I'm just trying to be as sensitive to other people as I can.
You gotta be sensitive.
So trigger warning here. It's a very violent movie. This can trigger people. It has violence towards women. One character in particular gets beat pretty badly. And it's a Quentin Tarantino written movie. Yeah. It's a very violent movie, and language and all that kind of stuff. So very adult movie. Yeah. Recommend not watching it around kids or whatever, but give it a watch if you want to see, Brad Pitt playing a nothing character. If you want to see what a fairy tale would look like if Quentin Tarantino wrote it. Different things like that. And Tony Scott's work, he's an amazing director, and he could have done a lot more amazing things. And it's very sad and upsetting we don't, he's not still around and everything. But if you get a chance to watch this movie, definitely watch it. We recommend it. It's recommended by the Post Credit Podcast.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
If you guys want to get a hold of us, we're on all social media at the Post Credit Podcast, except for Twitter. We're at the Post Credit. Our email address is thepostcreditpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website. It's www.thepostcreditpodcast.com, and we're on YouTube, so find us there. Get ready. We're about to start our Adam Sandler month. We're going to be a week late probably because of the power outage. We never really addressed that. Yes, me and Drew live right in the middle of the Texas power outage that we've had with the inclement weather, and we were out. I was without power for many days.
The Snowmageddon,
and the studio was out of power and everything like that. So we just weren't able to put this out when we wanted to. But March is going to be our Adam Sandler month, where we do movies. Should we say what the movies are now?
Sure,
or should
let's
we wait?
go for it.
Okay, so our first movie, we're going to do Happy Gilmore, and then we're going to follow that up with The Wedding Singer. We're going to also be doing Big Daddy. We're going to be doing Punch Drunk Love, and then we're going to be doing 50 First Dates.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many more movies of his that we could have added into this. I mean, we tried to do stuff like, it was either or Billy Madison or it was Happy Gilmore, and Happy Gilmore happens to be like one of my top 5 favorite films of all time, and every time I watch it, it's
that's the thing. Like
movie.
Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison kind of came out real close together.
Yeah.
That's why they
almost the same movie in a way,
and that's why the production company is called Happy Madison Productions for Adam Sandler and everything. It's so we felt like Happy Gilmore was the better movie, and it best represents that time. Probably Wedding Singer in there too, but I just really love The Wedding Singer, so we're going to do that. Yeah. But I mean, that also helps represent that time when The Wedding Singer and Big Daddy and stuff came out like that. And then we have to do the serious one, Punch Drunk Love, which like his first foray into serious roles. Yeah. And then The Wedding Singer, the 50 First Dates kind of gets into his later roles, but it's one of the better of his later roles. Yeah. And probably my favorite Adam Sandler movie is 50 First Dates. that Billy Madison or that Happy Gilmore and Big Daddy.
We're just big fans of Adam Sandler, and we were just thinking, hey, let's do a dedication month, and we just so many films of his that we could use. It's just we're picking our 5 favorites. Not saying that they're all like our favorites, but it's just the ones we thought better represented each time period that they came out with.
Right, from Billy Madison up to about 2005. That's when he had like his crazy popularity, and I think that those films best represent, or at least we can get into a good broad discussion about Adam Sandler. So stick with us through that. After that, we're gonna have 1, 2, or 3 more movies left before we kind of wrap up the season with our season finale. So stick with us. We're looking forward to it. Please email us, message us, let us know what your favorite Quentin Tarantino movies are, and whether it's written or directed, and let us know what your favorite Adam Sandler movies are in preparation for this next month. We appreciate you guys listening, and we'll see you next time.
And throw me a bone.